All right. Are we up and running?
We are live. Ladies
Let's
and
go.
gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Q&A. It's Friday, October 6th. I am Q. I'm joined by none other than McShane. Oof. Sorry. It's been
Struggle bus out there in California, huh?
a little too much fun last night at Pack Bitcoin. Not really.
Yeah. Yeah. Chemtrails straight to the dome. This is the result. Don't they have you in an airline hangar? Isn't that where the
Yeah.
conference is? Sick, man. I
Yeah.
gotta say, I was saying it before the show. Kudos to Pack Bitcoin on the grappling activations. I'm super jealous that I'm not there to tap out Ben Askren and all the other Bitcoiners that think they roll.
You think you could take Askren?
Yeah, I rip his ankles off. Yeah.
Ooh.
I roll with wrestlers all the time. No problem. No problem. I think it would be competitive. I think it would be super competitive. I'd give him a hard time, but I think if we roll 10 times, I think I'm tapping him at least once. So to be clear, he's way more, been doing it way longer, would have advantages, but it's just like, I mean, I've watched him, I've studied him 10 times. I think I could get him once. Deception all the way. I
When
would
I
have to
see
pull out. Go ahead.
when I see him later today, I'm going to tell him you said this.
I think, yeah, it'd be some trick shots. It'd be some tricky shit. It'd be an M&R roll. It'd be some kind of like flying knee bar. Yeah. It's not actually him. It's the other Bitcoiners I want to roll with, dude. Because sometimes these guys show up to my gym and they're like, "Oh, you're the crypto guy." I'm like, "That's not an accurate description." They're like, "Let's
That
roll." I'm like,
death. You're about to die. Let's do
"Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah." I'm like, "All right, let's do it, bro." Like,
Did you call me Brian Armstrong? You're dead,
oh
motherfucker.
my god.
Well, all right. Let me ask you this: like, do you think you could wrestle a bear? Are you one of
No,
those
bro, are you
guys?
insane?
I needed to know where the line was for you.
A
Because
baby bear? No, I'm not I'm very honest about my ability. I'm very honest about
what is
my
the
ability.
animal like?
Grappling and jujitsu are what is the
What
animal?
is an animal
I
like?
think
What's
I
the
could
line as far as animals go?
a
You,
mountain
you
lion.
could you could wrestle a
I could choke
mountain
out a
lion,
mountain.
but nothing scary.
If it didn't hit me, if it didn't get me in the jugular, if my carotid arteries are intact, I'm killing that
So what you're saying
motherfucker.
is, if it's
Rear naked.
declawed, you win.
If it's declawed, I win. If it has claws, I'm fucked.
Okay, so
Like,
every
like,
normal mountain lion you would ever
like a
come across in a real life scenario would kill you. Got it. Cool. Glad
no,
glad
no,
we've
no, no, no,
established
no,
that.
not a small one. No, and it wouldn't kill me either. I I would shoot it to death.
Guys, what I
But
really want to get trending right now. So just as a heads up, McShane will not be with us next week. He will be at Bitcoin Amsterdam. This is the man behind, if you didn't realize it, the man behind the programming of most of the Bitcoin conferences. Um, we need to arrange a B24 Alex McShane versus a mountain lion. All right. I want this trending on Noster. I want this trending on Twitter. Hashtag McShane v Lion B24. It's wordy. I got to work on that hashtag, but for right now, it's hashtag McShane v Lion B24.
I've been looking for these things. So every weekend I go hiking, get up dawn and dusk and go. I've never seen one in the wild. And if they don't want you to see them, you never will. They're like invisible. You know what I
Right.
mean? You only find when they pounce on your back. Like that's the only time you'll see them.
I was
But
going to say,
dude,
if you see a mountain lion, you're in trouble.
no, but I will know immediately if it's there. That's what they use. It's the same kind of dog they use to hunt the lions. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I can get lucky and find one. I just want to see one.
Train.
Yeah, train, practice, roll around a little bit. No, I just think they're amazing animals. Like,
Did I ever, the original plan for our coldest show mock up that I was trying to get your motto to sign off
dude,
on?
hold on. I was trying to explain to someone yesterday how we knew the top was in. I was explaining to them, I was like, we're in a cabin in
In
Vermont
Vermont,
with a
shooting a
fucking
show.
film crew shooting a television show naked outside. on mushrooms. We should have known. Like we should have known this wasn't going anywhere. We should have been selling at that time. The episodes never saw the light of day. Oh my god.
Never. But the original plan was I was going to put you guys in a cage with a bear.
I would do a baby bear like the Russians do. You know,
Yeah,
they get
it was
rolling
going to
with
be
those
like
little
one of
bears.
those like carnival bears that you could hire, and it was going to be the episode that we shot in LA. But that was going to be like you guys were going to go into a cold storage freezer, and then literally a bear was also going to be in there while you asked questions.
Depends on the kind of bear, dude. There's this place, I can't remember if it's in South or North Dakota. I think it's called Bear Country, USA. And if you go at the right time of year, they have all these cubs. And you can get in the pen with like 30 bear cubs. And they're super strong, dude. They're like 80 pounds, but they'll take you out. They'll knock you over like a grown person. They're crazy strong. It's
Damn.
insane.
Have you ever encountered a bear in real life?
Yeah, lots. Grizzlies, black bears. They're
Gay
terrifying. Yeah. They're terrifying. But what I've learned is that it's so people think black bears are like the tamer version. Black bear is the only bear that will stalk you and hunt you down, besides polar bears. Like if you want to catch a polar bear, hunting's really easy. You just go sit.
Well,
You
the
just go
black
sit
bear,
in Alaska and wait. They'll come to you.
I would argue the black bear isn't necessarily hunting you so much as like it's just following the food in your bag that you've not packed properly or stored.
No. They stalk and kill humans.
Really?
Yeah. There's a guy like
Tino, nod yes or no. Yes for McShane, no for me.
it
Okay,
happens.
damn.
Yeah, Tino's seen it.
Damn.
No,
I got
not
lucky.
all of them.
I
Not
went
all-
face to face
there
with the black bear and just went like roar.
Yeah. No, it's not all of them, but like sometimes if they're hungry, they'll hunt. We had someone in this community got basically like drinking his coffee on his front porch. I don't know how it happened. He must have been like on one side of it, but this black bear jumped up on the porch behind him and just like ripped his face off. And it had been stalking him. Been waiting
That's
for him out
scary.
with it. That's crazy. Okay, so the question people asked, this has fucking nothing to do with Bitcoin, but how often do you think about Rome? I'm going to transition this into Bitcoin, I swear. Not that often, but I do think about mountain lions about once an hour.
Wait, you don't think about Rome all that often?
I don't.
I
don't know
I would
that.
say at least once a week.
Once
And
a week?
and it's not even just I think about it, it's like I reference it in a conversation.
You reference it. Where
Yeah.
did you read a bunch about it or something? I don't know anything about it, to be
Well,
honest. Like,
the Roman Empire is Marcus Aurelius's empire. So I reference a lot of the things that he does and did during his time. And then you just kind of have like the overall sense of falling apart is what I love to reference, especially when it comes to like bringing in incompetent leaders who probably just got in because they knew the right person instead of, pushing forward good kings like Marcus Aurelius was to help right the ship in the country. So that tends to be the context that I discuss it quite a bit.
I think about the Medicis. I think about the Renaissance
Fair.
way more often than I think about Rome.
Fair.
But yeah.
I also, because the Roman Empire was around during the Persian Empire, and I genuinely go down the Persian Empire rabbit hole so much that it comes up just like very naturally.
Yeah, they clash. Interesting. No, for me, it's the mountain lions, man. Got mountain lions on the brain, bears on the brain. Yeah, but okay, so the question is, how often do you think about Rome? Not that much, because I'm usually thinking about the future, and we were talking before we jumped on about a mandibles sort of future and how realistic that is, and how is it that Bitcoiners have only read like one, maybe two books, and they're both just okay. So what do you think? Mandibles, you've read it, pretty true. Is this something you think could come to pass in a fiat society?
There are elements of it for sure that could come to pass. I don't want to say for sure. Like there are elements of it that could in some way come to pass. They could even be like oh, it's not directly, it's not called the Bancor, but hey, a group of countries that doesn't include America decided to jointly create a gold-backed currency. Huh? Where have I heard that in the news cycle in the last, I don't know, 2 months? The BRICS, like literally the BRICS. So there are elements of the book that I definitely, sorry, that I think will come true. There are other aspects of it where I'm like, Nevada's gonna be the free state. Spoiler alert. Yeah, no, I don't buy that. I don't buy certain aspects of just like the situation they find themselves in. Um, from from the perspective of, and I say this with a grain of salt because I don't know how people are gonna react. But like, there's a scene where a neighbor sort of like desperately begs to like come in to get some help. They let him in, they pull out a gun and essentially like take the house from the family. And
Don't trust, verify.
totally. And it's literally like one of those questions of like, you just don't know how desperate people will get when push comes to shove. So do I think like, I just, maybe I'm a little bit too romantic. Maybe I don't see the doom and gloom. I don't see it getting to that level of desperation because quite honestly, like, my expectation, for better or worse, not saying that I want this scenario, but my expectation, the thing that I think is most likely to happen in America when shit hits the fan and the dollar is losing value and no one in the rest of the world wants to transact on the dollar, and all of a sudden, like, we're dealing with crazy inflation, your bank account's all of a sudden going to have zeros added to it. Like that's just, they're going to airdrop you dollars or whatever they end up calling the Fed Now token. So that's the layer of it where I think isn't discussed in the mandibles, almost like that period of time that they're living through right now, where they're just trying to push the inevitable down the line by just printing money, giving it to different groups to like appease them for long enough to keep this charade going. So that's the element of the mandibles where I think it's not discussed, and I don't think it plays out in that way. I do want to shout out something Tino said, and Tino, if you want to just come on and say it yourself so I don't steal your words, you're so soft. All right. So Tino lives in an undisclosed South American country. I'm not going to dox anything. I will specify though the country he was talking about, which he just so happens to own like 3 houses and two large plots of like 7-acre lands in Argentina. Secretly works for Javier as well, so pro Bitcoin. But what Tino was describing to us was, that scene where they get their money and then the family goes to the hardware store and they buy like different screws and they're buying all these little things because tomorrow it's going to be worth more. Tino brought up, he was like, a few years ago, sure, like people in Argentina were like, they're taking their money and going and buying a motorcycle, but now they're not doing that. They're not going and buying goods immediately with the pesos they get, even though the exchange rate has more than doubled since that period of time when people were just buying goods. Instead, all they want is to be put on another payment rail. They just want to have a different form of money that works for them. They're good with the dollar. They're very comfortable just kind of pulling in El Salvador and saying, hey, you know what? Our peso's worthless. We're going to opt out and we're just going to be a dollarized country. We'll transact and use USDs as our base currency here.
This is also a question of how are they going to facilitate trade with states around them. So you get this a lot in African countries. There's no clear trading pair between the two currencies. They need to swap into something like the dollar, and now they have a common something that can meet a coincidence of wants.
Right.
And I'm sorry to say that's not Bitcoin in most cases. I think we're gonna hop to a future just like landlines never really caught on. No one built that infrastructure across the whole continent of Africa. They skipped right to mobile phones. I think they're going to have a quick run with a lot of this fiat and find Bitcoin as that common rail. I think it'll arise naturally just as a virtual solution to this problem of meeting coincidence of wants and facilitating trade between different communities there and in South America. But currently, that's not the case. So it's important to recognize that the fiat system is not going to disappear overnight. And you go to places like Lebanon, you'd think, oh, well, Bitcoin fixes this. So the people don't care. They want dollars. They're not interested. The education, I mean, you could say the education isn't there, the infrastructure isn't there, it's too hard, but it's in reality, like, if you want to participate in the international economy, I don't know. I feel like people are more inclined and trained to reach for dollars before Bitcoin. I don't think that'll always be the case, but just to actually have a fair assessment of where we are currently, um, I think what'll happen is that a lot of these fiat currencies over the next 20, 25 years are going to collapse into just a few. Um, and they'll run. Bitcoin will grow in greater mind share and hopefully as a reserve system and active cash payment system for those who choose to debank. Um, I don't know if you had anything else on this note, Q, but we have a question that we could dive into that's kind of related.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So first, the story to go along with this is Swan is announcing a new multi-sig product, which is pretty cool. Have you heard much about this? Anything on the ground about this, Q? Because they announced it at their own event, obviously. Yeah, it's a custodial, or I should say, a collaborative custody solution through, I think it's Blockstream's wallet and the Swan software. Who did they acquire a few years ago? Now I'm drawing a blank.
I too am drawing a blank. Was it
open source wallet? Swan acquires. Lost it. Anyway, the idea is
Spectre Solutions?
Spectre, that's it. I was thinking like Ghost, something Ghost. Spectre. Okay, so they acquired Spectre, the wallet. They're, I guess, going to work with a hardware provider, work with Adam Back, and kind of put together this solution. We'll see how it actually comes out and what it looks like. But my question is really like, when should you use collaborative custody? For me, it's always seemed like kind of an unnecessary, scary path. But there's a lot of people who like vehemently disagree with me. They think people are not intelligent enough to self-custody their own Bitcoin, or they argue the opposite, that collaborative custody is self-custody. And I have a hard time with that. That's a tricky thing to say. I think there's certainly privacy trade-offs. I'm aware of the fact that in most cases, the custodian, if they're only holding one of your keys, can't sign for your Bitcoin. But you could also think about it as they might be able to hold your Bitcoin hostage if you lose one of your keys, because you're going to have to go to them and ask permission to sign at that point. And it's also like, I've seen these services do things like reuse receive addresses. It's like, yeah, you can set up a multi-sig with us. We'll hold one of your keys, no problem. You can diversify your hardware. Very cool. But at the end of the day, like, they don't even rotate receive addresses. So that's like a huge trade-off for me. That's a huge privacy implications on chain for everyone, not just the custodian that now have insight into your transactions. So for that reason, I made the decision a few years ago just not to pursue collaborative custody. I was like, I'm going to take the extra couple hours and just learn how to do this myself. Other people make different decisions. There's no one size fits all. There never will be for this stuff. I'm curious your take on it, Q. Is this a service and a product you would see yourself using? Sort of collaborative multi-sig model?
Personally, no. But that goes back to my personal preference. I do think that these types of products and solutions need to be in the marketplace. And they need to come from Bitcoin focused companies like a Swan, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where, hey, this company also just so happens to custody shit coins that could get caught up in a huge mess, and then all of a sudden your Bitcoin, like the price of Bitcoin, will be caught up in contagions for the foreseeable future. But what you don't want is your Bitcoin to be caught up in some contagion event where you can't access it or you don't have it anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's not really a risk with collaborative custody, right?
I would argue. I would
It's
actually
not.
disagree.
Well, they
No,
don't have
because
access to sign for your reserves.
but
Hopefully,
they
right?
can. But
A quorum, like.
but they could be in a situation where they create some sort of loophole that allows them the ability to, in the event of insolvency, they have the right to use those funds to prevent insolvency.
No. They physically cannot sign for your Bitcoin if set up correctly. They only have one key. Or it's complicated, but let's pretend it's three, it's a multi-sig, a 2 of 3. They only
Mhm.
have one key, so they can under no circumstances take your funds. The idea is that you're trusting them to hold on to your key, God knows where, in cyberspace somewhere, probably not in a physical location, so that if you lose one, they can help you recover it and you're not responsible. Because maybe, okay, maybe you've lived in like one place your whole life and you just don't have that much geographical options to hide a couple keys. And maybe on top of that, like more likely is you need help setting up a multi-sig because you don't want to fuck it up. And that's fair. It's hard to do. It's not easy. It's technically challenging. It's confusing. Um, but they if set up correctly, services like Swan and Casa's multi-sig should never have the ability to sign over your Bitcoin. They can also,
Yeah,
like, Casa has an interesting thing where even if you want to use one of their keys to sign for your Bitcoin, you have to make like a video call. You have to prove, answer some security questions. So it can be a robust model. I just think when you invite strangers into your home and your financial situation, you're on some levels trusting third parties with certain bits of information. You can't get that privacy back. Like you can't claw that back, those transactions. So I don't know. It's risky to me. Not knocking Swan for doing it. I think it's a service for a very hopefully small group of people. So it's good that they have it. And like you said, it's amazing to see this coming from such like a staunch Bitcoin only company. But personally, not something I would ever use.
yeah, but I do think it's important to, again, most most of the products that we need in order to accomplish global mass adoption, many of the current Bitcoiners will not need or even opt to use. But it is for the masses who will not be as vigilant at self custody, who will not be as vigilant at privacy concerns, safety,
I'm
as
torn on this. I'm torn on this because that is the pessimist view, right? I'd like to think that we can engineer solutions that will bring self custody to the masses,
you are
and I'd
not.
like
I'm
to think,
sorry. You are not fighting. You are thinking you are fighting a issue in the way we handle money, but what you're really fighting is a cultural issue that we have
yeah, I agree. I
about
agree.
responsibility. And I don't think that changes in a generational cycle, nor do I think that changes.
It's an efficiency trade off, but I would contend I don't think it changes in a cycle. I don't think it happens anytime soon. But I think the pattern of misbehavior and power grabs by the government. This is one thing I think Safedin actually got kind of right. Like it does proportionally help people get fed up and grow interested in free and open source software and tools, not to the level that we are, maybe, but maybe a few touch points and decisions are made. Oh, I should self custody this. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a butcher the other day. And when I come in, we kind of talk about Bitcoin because I always tease them to take Bitcoin in payments. This is where I get some of my food. When finally they said they would do it and that they'd been buying Bitcoin. And I said, just out of curiosity, I don't mean to pry, but like, do you self custody this or do you leave it on an exchange somewhere? And they said, oh, it's on Coinbase. And as soon as I explained to them, like, you understand how that's no different than keeping your money in the, like, you could get rugged by that third party completely. They can go bankrupt. They might be misallocating funds. You have no fucking idea what's happening inside that company. It's a group of really fallible humans with their own incentives that do not align with yours. And they're like, shit, like I need a solution to that. I was like, I've got one for you, gave them a SATS card. Like, I mean, it's not the best, but I would say way better than having it on Coinbase, depending on the person. But I guess my point is like people, I think they are inherently interested in taking responsibility over their own money, and they are growing more interested over time as they're continue to be abused by the banking system and by inflation, um, and monetary debasement and government overreach and surveillance. I think we're going to see the pendulum start to swing the other way, because it's getting to a point where you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything without being monitored. I think social credit is like going to come into the United States in a really freaky way, and I think those kinds of overreaches will just push things back in the direction of personal responsibility, and hopefully get people to stop making this trade-off of convenience, um, in exchange for privacy, I guess, is my main point, Q.
I I don't disagree that there are going to be these breaking points that we see throughout society in the coming future that will force people to reevaluate what they value. But as it goes to the context of global mass adoption, the masses are still going to require the hand holding, the um, non difficult, non self custody options. Like that's the easiest way I can put it because my brain isn't working right now and I can't think of the right words. But I get what you're saying, and I do agree that there's a possibility that the percentage is much larger of people who self custody than maybe I'm giving it credit for. Like I very much fall in the camp of like it'll be in a range of 80-20, where and the question I always ask people is like, how many of you guys actually know what goes on when you turn a light switch on in your house or you turn the ignition on in your car? Like most of us don't. That's the 80% of people. We don't really know how those things work. But then there's a 20% smaller population that can like perfectly describe to you what's happening inside of your engine as you turn that ignition on. And that will be the current class of Bitcoiners for the most part.
Yeah, like
Not every Bitcoiner.
special technical language, just like money itself is a special technical language.
Yeah.
There's
So
this other barrier where people have such a personal experience with money. Often to me, it appears almost like a little bit shameful and defensive. Like people really don't want to talk about it. If you get outside of the Bitcoin community, you start talking to a normal person, maybe they're interested on the surface level of businesses and stuff. But when you really get into the nitty gritty, kind of makes people culturally uncomfortable in this society. Maybe there are places in the world that aren't like that, but in the United States, it's almost like a sore subject, a taboo. You don't talk about money, you don't talk about wealth accumulation, you don't talk about kind of strategies for success here if you're outside sort of the financial community. So I think that tide will change and is changing as people sitting in line at the grocery store looking around, look at the price of these goods now. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Um, okay, so our next story for the day, we've got Strike announcing Strike Private, which is super exciting. I take partial responsibility for this announcement because I was no, dude, seriously. I was talking to Jack and Dylan, his buddy, a few months ago and then again a few weeks ago about strategies that Strike could take to kind of do, because they're very concentrated on what they do, financial rails, payment services, and available in like 65 plus countries. Like they're absolutely killing it. But they could kind of diversify a little bit into some other products and services. And one of my suggestions was like just make Strike private and do bespoke OTC sales of Bitcoin for high net worth individuals, and then specifically like target those individual. Like I sent this whole long message and plan on how to do it, and dude, like weeks later they did it. Boom. I'm excited to see what this service looks like. I'm excited to see they're only letting a certain number of people in. Of course, don't want to get overwhelmed right off the bat as they kind of try this out, but I'm really interested to see how this looks. Swan was very early, and I think a lot of their success is actually due to their Swan private model, their sort of white glove OTC service. Obviously, the advantage for Strike is they've got a global approach. So that opens up a lot more capital for them to bring in. I'm curious also, I didn't see it in the blog post, but whether they're offering custody for these high net worths or kind of IRA solutions, or whether it's just OTC trading for now, basically. But the feature is basically, you get those pesky limits, you finally get a big payday, whatever, you fall into some money, you go to buy Bitcoin and you're stuck at like some arbitrary, based on your risk profile as a user, $4,000, maybe 10, 20, who knows? But at some point they're going to cut you off because they can't assume that much risk while the fiat system takes T+3 to settle, or T+30 or whatever it is. So each user kind of has their own risk profile there. I think that's alleviated if your net worth's over. I don't know what did you say anything about their hurdle? I'm not sure what the rate there is to get in that program. For Swan, I think it's like a million, $2 million, something like this. Or you have to want to purchase more than like 200K worth of Bitcoin. That was a few years ago, so maybe it's changed. But yeah, I think the risk goes down basically if the person's more qualified custodian or a accredited investor. My other idea, let's see if they roll this one out. My other idea was for Strike was to set up a venture arm and also set up an exchange. I mean, not an exchange, sorry, an event, their own event. It could become their own marketing arm. But we'll see. We'll see if those come to pass.
Yeah, I mean, the accreditation stuff is one of the most infuriating things to people like me, at least.
I hear you. I don't know necessarily that that's a restriction for Strike. It's a very useful metric for filtering out noise, and like you don't have to deal with people that don't know what they're doing or are going to worry about these huge purchases because they have no experience managing like real substantial amounts of money if they're an accredited investor. But to talk about that rule, yeah, it's bullshit, arbitrary. There might as well just be a test that you take, just like you take a test for a driver's license, or you can do what most people do and just self-certify as accredited and say, fuck you, that's unconstitutional. Like, I'm going to invest in whatever the fuck I want. Like, because the reality is, it's to protect you. It's to protect you from losing your life savings and then freaking out and suing someone who talked you into making an investment. If you're comfortable dipping into the private markets and you can do it in a way, now there are rules for certain funds, of course, that make you verify. That's different, right? So there's a subtle difference there. Self-certify that you're accredited, and say how, which is kind of a matter of click, or verify that you're accredited, which is a pain in the ass. Like, you have to get like notarized proof of funds like in your accounts, or get a lawyer to, it's annoying. They can ask for a bunch of different documents. But if you are really accredited, it's probably not that much of a hurdle. So, but yeah, dude, you're right. It's totally like you can go off to war and die for this country, but you can't invest in private equities. I mean, that's pretty messed up. Unless you have the 200K combined income with you and a spouse, or 100 or 1 million in net assets. I think there's one more. I think there are one or two other descriptors of an accredited investor, but they're totally arbitrary.
You need to be making $250,000 a year for 2 years consistently that you can show on tax returns, or have $1 million of assets that you can show, or show that you've managed over $1 million worth of assets. So,
or take a test.
No, you have to have the assets. I've gone down this path so many times. Like, I can tell you the asset requirement is a big thing. Plus, like, when you are an accredited investor, you're supposed to be paying like an annual thing to keep your license at like $250,000 a year.
No, that's not real. You don't have a license as an accredited investor. It's case by case. So it's seen through the lens of the client. So if you're investing in a fund they're going to have to ask you because you have to be an accredited investor. But depending on the type of fund, if it's a public offering, they have to verify that everyone that's coming in, because you publicize, there are funds that you can, Jason Calacanis, for example, he has funds that he talks about publicly, I cannot remember the numbering code for what kind it is, but he has to actually verify that every single person that comes into that fund is an accredited investor. So you can't fake that. Like, you have to get the letters. You have to. It's not a license though. It's just that relationship. The other funds that are private may choose not to have you verify, just self-certify and like write a sentence or two about where, why do you have so much money? And in that case, you're going to find people, of course, who are not actually accredited, but who are like, yeah, I don't care about this law. Yeah. Okay, it's 200,000 individually, or 300,000 with a spouse in each of the prior 2 years. Yeah, you're right. Or net worth over $1 million. And then
the net worth thing, the caveat there is it can't, your real estate counts, but it can't be your primary residence.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's another weird caveat.
Oh, that's interesting. So what I was talking about, the test is professional criteria. So if you have like your Series 7 or your Series 65, or you've managed large amounts of money and have a history of that and have passed these sort of, I guess, SEC's test for this, you'll be accredited as well. But never fear, plebs. I don't know if private, venture investments is what you want to be spending your time doing anyway.
Oh, I disagree.
Very high risk.
Well, maybe not.
I mean, I wouldn't tell anyone what to do personally, but if you're
blindly,
at a place,
but like building these types of companies, like there's an issue I have with the pleb community right now, candidly, which is it's a lot of attacks on people who are doing things that they would never themselves do. And I don't like that personally. Like, I'm a big.
Can you give an example? Like, what do you mean?
I'm like, fine. Rose.
You mean they're attacking builders? They're attacking builders.
Like, I was honestly going to bring up Swan. Like, I was going to kind of like, I know. And like, I don't think the way they've handled certain things are the right way, but at its core, they are trying to do something to help Bitcoin grow and be adopted. And then there are a lot of people who are in the comments who can't say that they've even contributed anything more other than they did a DCA last week or last month, and then like shit posted on Twitter.
On Swan, probably.
So that's where I'm kind of getting pretty, like, genuinely pretty frustrated with some of the like the pleb critiques.
Dude, they're not even valid critiques, because it's just grinding. I mean, it's just, dude, it happens in bear markets. People are frustrated. They're upset. They want to take out their anger on somebody. They don't know where to look because they've created this insular world and they have nothing to like occupy their mind. And they're just like outraged and want to tear people down. And it's super unhealthy. I guess what I was saying, I just to go back, I just wanted to clarify something. I didn't mean that they should not be interested in private markets, and that's only for, no. What I'm saying is, I think the obvious move is to buy Bitcoin. And when you've achieved somewhat of a, secure Bitcoin stack, you're self-custodying it, then maybe you look at, okay, what are some other risks I can take to accumulate potentially more wealth? Like, venture is a very tail end thing. Like, most of your venture investments are going to fail or fail to produce a return that outperforms Bitcoin. Thus, the hurdle for you investing in one of these should be extremely high. Like, you should have an extremely high bar for these businesses. It should be something as well, really, we've said this time and time again, but if it's not a minor exchange, there kind of is there's no blueprint for that. I guess the wallet, like we just talked about Spectre, but really like consistent blueprint, it's like miners and exchanges. So I'm curious to see what other businesses can get acquired or go public over the next. But the Swans and the Strikes of the world are killing it, man.
Dude, I will say some of the things that I'm like really paying attention to are, and it goes back kind of to the very beginning of our conversation, like custody wallets, like easier to use custody wallets, hot
What do you mean
wallets,
custody wallets?
or like hot wallets, like better hot wallets, more of a simpler UI experience with. I don't know the other way of saying hot wallet on my phone. I thought custody
Yeah.
wallet was the right way of saying that.
Well, there's two different kinds. You can have a hot wallet that you also self custody and manage your own keys,
So,
or you can have a custody solution. You could have a wallet of Satoshi, very
yeah,
smooth, very fast experience. But the trade off is you didn't put the work, so you have
custodial.
this
Thank you,
custodial
Tino.
solution.
Thank you, Tino. Sorry, brain
Yeah,
not
yeah,
working today.
that's all right, dude. You got
Yeah,
like, yeah,
a hot wallet with a custodial solution is what I think is something that ramps up. And then I know there are solutions to this being worked on. I believe there's already a product like this, but something to where you can pool together the liquidity of the Lightning Network, like take a few different Lightning Network routes and combine them. There's something like this, right?
I'm sorry. I was frustratedly looking at how blurry our.
Oh, I thought you were getting like I thought you were like getting excited to talk about what I was talking about.
No, it's just. All right, go ahead. What was the question again? Sorry.
Like I want to see a way where you can, and this is a little bit fiat, so bear with me, but there should be a way to combine the liquidity of the Lightning Network. Like, let's say I have a channel, you have a channel, we have the half a Bitcoin's worth of liquidity, something very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
But
We have a channel with each other, or we have two different channels?
two different channels that just exist. And
Okay.
we each have like some people who use it, but it's not a lot. Almost kind of think of it like a mining pool where everyone contributes their hash rate to this pool and then you get back a certain amount. Like if you have a Lightning channel open based on the amount of liquidity that you put in it, you get a share back of how much the transaction fees were collected on that channel.
That's how it works.
But
That's
like
what you do pay fees in Lightning. They're just
no, no,
so
no.
small that they're virtually inconsequential.
Right, but is it a pooled system or is it just like an individual? Like I have my
No, you
liquidity
set
on
you
my
set
channel.
your own fee rate for people using your liquidity and sending transactions across your channel. So you as a Lightning operator, that's the hard part about custodial Lightning. It's fucking complicated, and you have to manage all that. Like you have to manage your liquidity, you have to manage your fee rates, and I think very few people do it like quote unquote profitably.
Right,
It's not that big a business yet. Like the time put in is always going to obliterate any profits that you had trying to run this stuff.
right.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Pretty deep in the weeds. Lightning is hard.
Fair. Also wanted to quickly shout out Jay Miles. I hope I see you today.
Jay Miles.
Thank you for the
Nice.
10K sats.
Oh yeah, thanks, brother. That's awesome. Shout out
Just
everybody on Zap.stream.
just full disclosure that McShane is grifting all of you, and I've never seen a single one of these sats.
You'll see one soon enough. Soon enough, you'll see your sats. This is a custodial service, Q, to keep you from losing your Bitcoin.
Look, I just want to spend it on my airplane ticket to Nostrasia.
Yeah, that's true. We're there. We're almost there, dude. We got like maybe like $70 out of like 2,000. So you'll be there. So we got 1 month here. I think you should fly standby. I think you could get there if you just flew standby for like 6 flights.
There's
like
no
$200.
way in hell I'm going like let alone trying to fly internationally, but especially if it had to be like with layovers, like 0% chance I would do that.
Dude, one time I think I was coming back from El Salvador and I was like just not into it. It's not even that much travel. I had to go to the East Coast. So it's like you go to Miami, East Coast, whatever. But I had to get to the airport early for some reason. And my flight wasn't for like 6 hours. And there was a flight before my flight. And I was like, I'm just going to get on this flight and see what happens.
To
Like,
go to the same place you're going to.
I'm going to the same place. And dude, Okay, so I get on the plane, like I just like walk past the lady, get on the plane, sit down. Eventually someone comes like, "That's my seat." I was like, "Fuck, I didn't think about that." So I find another seat, like I found another seat and nobody came. And I
Shut
just
up.
took the flight to Miami. I just
That's
arrived in
honestly
Miami.
incredible.
Yeah, I got there like way early. I was like,
That's
"This sucks."
kind of concerning from the aspect of like how much scrutiny I go through at the airport for you to just be able to like nonchalantly walk
White
onto a
privilege, bro.
plane.
It's white privilege. For all they knew, I was the pilot, man. I was walking on that thing so confidently.
But you're supposed to, were you in America flying to Miami or you were in El Salvador
No,
flying to
no, I was in
Miami?
El Salvador. I was in El
Okay, that's
Salvador.
why. That's
Yeah.
100% why this worked.
I don't know, man. I have met not the brightest TA on our side, stateside. Gotta say,
No, no, no.
there's
TSA
definitely some wiggle room there.
TSA is like like these are people who couldn't
Did
get
you almost
into
say
the police
bottom of the
academy.
barrel?
Yeah, dude. Oh, dude,
Bottom of the barrel.
they are like the equivalent of mall cops. Like they are rent a cop, mall cop. Like that is their level of actual authority that they actually have.
Well,
Like
the
they
hilarious
can't
thing is
prosecute you. They
the number of instances of hijackings they've stopped is like basically zero. Like there's no reason for all this. I mean, it's a fun ritual of surveillance, but
dude. So I have TSA pre-check. I like having my ease of access.
ooh,
I will say this. Yes, I gave up a lot of personal information to get it, but on the inverse of that, I used to get stopped every time going through TSA when I didn't have it. And ever since I got TSA pre-check, I on like there are a couple of times I've been pulled aside and I kind of give a look to them. I'm like, really? At like
they're
dude,
like, yeah.
dude. So I forgot where we were. I think it was last 4th of July. My girlfriend and I are flying from LA to Baltimore for a wedding. And there's a burrito spot that has like some of the best bean and cheese burritos in LA, and her and I both love them. So we decided like let's grab a couple of those and we'll take them into the airport because I've done it multiple times. I know I can get the bean and cheese burrito through security. And I literally tell them before, I'm like, hey, as a heads up, there are a bunch of bean and cheese burritos in my backpack. So that's what that's gonna look like. They're like, hey, we need to pull them out. And then, they're foil wrapped burritos. And then the guy looks at me, he's like, do you want to open them or do you want me to open them? I'm like, you need me to open my burrito? He's like, yeah, I need to see it inside. So I opened the foil. I was like, here you go. He's like, no, I need you to open the burrito. And I looked at him like, you need me to open my fucking burrito just so you can see what? I literally looked at him. I was like, are you doing this to white people when they come through?
Cute. You're breaking the rules. This is your whole argument goes out the window.
No, you're allowed to bring food.
Big fucking sign, no food or drink past
no,
this
it doesn't say no food.
I'm gonna go in and hope I don't get stopped as a brown man.
It doesn't say no food. You are allowed to take food through TSA. That's what they don't want. Dude, I do it all the time.
I thought you had to purchase it on the other side when you get into free airport land.
No.
Really?
You only aren't allowed to take liquids, but you are allowed to take food. So like, dude, I've stopped and gotten like Korean barbecue, just like a plate, put it in my backpack, or like grab a couple burgers from In-N-Out, put it in my backpack. Like this is my move because I hate paying $20 for a McDonald's cheeseburger in the airport because that's
dude, that airport McDonald's hits different though.
No, dude. Airport food is the worst. It
is. Yeah, you should never eat.
Even if it's like a chain that you go to regularly, it's still exponentially worse at the airport than anywhere else.
Yeah. This is the fiat society, huh?
But that's why you can 100% take food in through TSA. Like you've never taken dude, I get so annoyed when I don't have snacks and then I'm like, shit, I'm kind of hungry. I'm gonna go to like the snack counter and you pay $5 for a bag of chips.
I don't do snacks. We have different eating habits for sure.
Fair. I will say now that I've been fasting a lot more, I've been trying to make a point to like fast on flights.
Are you one of those guys that's hitting that you have a 20-hour eating window, but the other 8 hours you're fasting? Don't.
No, to be honest with you, it's just like I skip breakfast.
Okay.
What I really
8 hour
aim
eating.
for is I try to wait at least 17 hours from my last meal when I went to bed to
That's okay.
start eating the next day.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like, depending on what my day looks like, some days I'll be done eating by 7. Some days I will eat something at 10 o'clock though. And then it's like if I eat at 10, then I'm gonna wait until like 3 in the afternoon to eat again. But that's really what I'm doing. I'm just waiting 17 hours.
Yeah, I feel you. I got to get my mind right for Amsterdam. I mean, they don't have much great food there anyway, but
Are you
you
guys
know
still
how it
doing that
is.
vegan food truck again?
I don't know if will it be at the conference? Maybe. I think
Yeah.
I think it is all the same vendors actually. Yeah. Should be there. Yeah, anyone viewing, if you're going to be in Amsterdam over the next week, hit me up. Let's hang out. Let's have I think there's a couple Noster parties going on. I'll probably try to attend. And there's certainly going to be a lot of Noster content on the main stage. I was talking to Snowden. All he was interested in talking about was Noster. So I'm hoping his keynote is going to be really Noster and of course, Bitcoin heavy. So that should be a fun time. Wrap up our biggest story of the day that we didn't even discuss yet. We haven't even said
Oh yeah, Elon Musk.
Elon once. Yeah. Go for it.
No, you tee us up.
Okay, so Elon's getting sued by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. They want to compel him to testify as part of their probe into his 44B takeover of Twitter. So this has been kind of like a long-standing feud with Elon. Has he broke securities laws, like buying stock in Twitter? I think he was a little bit late disclosing his Twitter holdings as part of the problem. But I don't know. What do you think about this, Q? It seems the government in all aspects is kind of going for Elon right now.
I'm gonna use a UFC analogy here because I think I
UFC
can land it. I think I can land it. You're gonna have to.
Do you mean MMA or do you mean UFC?
I mean specifically UFC.
Oh wow! All right.
Now, I'm not saying the SEC was the greatest at one point or the top tier fighter by any stretch of the imagination. So I want to get that out of the way. So don't take that part of this comp. But right now, where the SEC is at is the equivalent to the moment in Conor McGregor's career where he just couldn't get a win. And the reason I say that is because
so
the
now, right now, it's
like,
gonna get
but like
Conor.
It's been like for the last, I'd say like 8 years.
It's not been 8 years. It's been like
5.
Yeah, 5 to 7.
5.
Okay, so
this is that window of time where Conor McGregor literally has not been able to get a win is where the SEC finds itself in its own career. And the reason look, they just last week lost their appeal to Ripple. The week before that, or a few weeks before that, they lost the case to Grayscale. They lost the original case to Ripple. Like they have consistently found themselves on the wrong side to the point where Gary Gensler is getting like roasted by members of Congress at a hearing as though like this is a Comedy Central roast instead of like actually tangibly and thoughtfully discussing what's going on and how do we solve this problem. It's a lot of politicians just trying to make a name for themselves and get a really good soundbite out for social media, which a lot of us listened to, a lot of us shared, a lot of us were laughing about. But that's like, this to me doesn't like the SEC might actually have a case. This might be something they end up like falling ass backwards to and winning, but a broken clock is right twice a day. And inevitably the SEC is broken. And I don't really think that this is going to materially impact anything from Tesla, Twitter, Elon. I don't think this is going to move the needle for any of those things that could theoretically impact our lives. Like, I don't think Twitter's getting sold. Like, Elon's not going to be forced to sell Twitter. Tesla stock price is not going to take a hit as a result of this.
What's the worst case scenario here? He comes out with some hefty fines that he can pay a trillion times over.
There's no chance, and I'm no legal expert, but there's no chance that the SEC turns around and is like wins a case and the ruling is he has to sell Twitter. That's not in my opinion.
Has that ever happened? Does that ever happen?
Yeah.
gotta.
the SEC, but other governmental groups have definitely been able to force the hands of people having to sell their companies. But I don't think the SEC has had success in that.
Got it. To clarify, yeah, Connor's lost 3 of his last 4. The win that you probably didn't watch this fight, but this was epic. 40-second TKO, knocked out Cowboy Cerrone. Outside of that, not so hot. Lost 2 in a row to Dustin Poirier. Coming back for Michael Chandler, maybe, but he's looking sharp, dude. We'll question is, what's going on with Zuck and Musk? Did I miss something? Are they never going to fight?
They're never going to fight. It was such a publicity stunt.
Zuck would rip his face off, to be honest. I mean, Zuck's like legit training.
Okay, here's a fun one.
What do you got?
In April 2020, the SEC charged SC Works Corp and its former CEO and chairman of the board with making false and misleading statements about SC Works' plans to distribute COVID-19 rapid test kits. And then as a result, the SEC won their case to force the CEO out of the company.
That's not the same as selling it, though.
No, but the FTC and DOJ...
so they can make him step back from leadership.
Like the DOJ forced Martin Shkreli to sell Turing Pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm. Did you see Martin Shkreli with SPF's homegirl? Tiffany.
No, he's tapping Caroline.
Me and Nolan have no, not that girl. Me and Nolan have always been wondering how this little
the Asian girl
crypto reporter gets all these inside scoops with SBF, and the assumption is obviously that they were kind of in some sort of relationship. But Martin Shkreli posted something like, "I'll keep her warm for you until you get out," or some crazy tweet, dude. Like, I don't know if it's just a publicity stunt, but
I need to share this because this is absolutely retarded. So my girlfriend is driving in Florida right now. I had to stop at a toll because we don't have like our automated toll thing yet. And then she was texting me like, I really hope they take card because I don't have any cash. For a $1.75 toll, they literally are making her like, they gave her like a receipt that she has an address to mail a check by a certain date to them. What is going on? Like, how complicated of a process is this?
The toll system's really, if you look into it, this is like between Canada, the US, and Mexico for most of these kind of superhighway systems. So it actually, you're paying for better infrastructure, but for tolls, like international travel between those. Like that money doesn't go ahead.
Most tolls are dictated by the state. Like California toll roads are different than Florida toll roads, which are different than DC toll roads, for example.
It depends on the toll. It depends if you've got this, interstate highway system.
Right.
That's different. That gets into like even international politics. But it is very weird to me that all of these government agencies don't take even virtual like fiat. Like if I want to, I think I explained this before, if I want to get rid of trash, I have to like go to an office with cash and buy like a punch card and then go to a center and they'll eyeball how much trash I have and give me
honestly punches. The government
like, and they know none of them
money laundering scheme. The government's just a giant money laundering scheme. Like you've heard the saying of like, oh, what people say about you is just them protecting themselves. And then like we saw it with that Menendez guy from New Jersey, where he was like, "Oh, Bitcoin's used by money launderers," and then next week it turns out this man has been taking bribes and money laundering for years.
Yeah.
So it like begs the question of like, okay, if the government thinks Bitcoin's full of money launderers, then they're probably the money launderers, and they just don't want us to point the finger back at them.
Yeah. Oh, last minute questions. I got a meeting here. I actually got to jump to.
Go.
Should wrap this up. Good stream, man. I'm gonna be gone next week, so I don't know if Q's gonna hit a couple lives without me. Not
I'm
a
going
single one.
surfing all next week. I'm so excited.
You're
Like,
going
literally, I'm
surfing where? In LA?
yeah, every single day next week.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. No show next week, but I think we're going to release a couple videos over that time. So yeah, we'll see you there. See you in Amsterdam. Still plenty of time to get tickets to in Australia too. They're completely free.
If you're at
Yeah.
Pack Bitcoin, I'm going to take a shower and head over there shortly. So I'll see you guys there.
All right. Catch you later, guys.